Omer is the link between Pesach and Shavuot. Pesach, of course, is the festival of Emunah. In fact, the Slonim Rebbe calls it the Rosh Hashanah of Emunah. So I'd like to begin by an unusual analysis of Chag Gadya, where we left off on Seder night. The story goes as follows. There's a Rav somewhere in days gone by in Eastern Europe. He had a particular routine. He was a dayan during the day. In the evenings he'd come home for an hour for supper, and then he'd be available back in the Beit Midrash for people to ask questions. One day his wife's making him fish for supper, nice and nutritious, but the fish is a little bit hot. So she thinks to herself, I'll put it outside the back door for a few minutes, and then the fish will cool down, ready for my husband when he comes home. Puts the fish outside the back door, but what happened? The local village cat helps himself to the Rebbe's fish. And there's a whole commotion. What's she going to do? Husband's going to come home, no supper for him, he's going to need it, he might be upset. Meanwhile, Yankele, the village Herman, is wandering around looking for excitement. And here's a commotion going on out inside the Rav's house. Comes inside, and the Rebbe explains what happened. What's she going to do? How's she going to inform the Rav? Says, Yankele, don't worry, I will go to shul, I will find the Rav, and I will tell him exactly what happened to his fish. How are you going to tell him? Don't worry, leave it to me. Comes to shul, and the Rav's finishing Mincha or Mariv, takes 3 steps back, and to his surprise, when he turns around, behind him is Yankele. And he says to Yankele, what is it? He says, Rabbi, I've got a question for you, a shayla. So the Rabbi says, look, you know my routine. I'm home for an hour, then I'll come back, you can ask as many questions as you like. He says, Rabbi, I'm afraid this is an emergency. Says the Rabbi, what is it? Pikuach nefesh? He says, Rabbi, it's much more significant than Pikuach nefesh. I've got doubts about my emunah, doubts of faith. Would you leave a Jew with doubts of their faith even for a single hour or for a single minute? So the Rabbi says, okay, Yankele, what is it? He says, Rabbi, I've been studying Chag Gadya. In Chag Gadya, the final song of Seder night, it says as follows. The father buys a kid. The kid is then divided by the cat. So the kid was innocent, the cat was guilty. The dog was innocent, the stick was guilty. The fire was innocent, the water was guilty. The ox was innocent, the slaughterer was guilty. The angel of death was innocent. Conclusion's got to be, says Yankele, the Almighty was guilty. That's how the sequence follows through. Says that Yankele to the Rebbe, it's rocked my faith. So the Rebbe turns around to Yankele and says, listen, Yankele, you've got to start from the right perspective. You've got to be anchored in the right place. Let's start off at the right place. The premise is what God does is correct. God did the right thing. In which case the angel of death was wrong. So the slaughterer was correct, the ox was wrong, the water was right, the fire was wrong, the stick was right, the dog was wrong, the cat was right. At that point Yankele interrupts and says, Rebbe, if the cat was right, then you've got no supper. Now it's a great story, but actually within the story there's quite an important concept. And that is when it comes to emunah, when it comes to faith, everything begins with the orientation. Where are we? What is our faith? How is our faith anchored? If our faith is anchored correctly, then the trajectory is a correct trajectory. If our faith is anchored incorrectly, then we go off in all sorts of directions and aberrations. Pesach is about recalibrating. Pesach is about anchoring our faith as it's supposed to be. And if Pesach is a festival of faith, then Shavuot is the festival of commitment. If Pesach is the engagement between God and Klal Yisrael, then Shavuot is the wedding between God and Klal Yisrael. And the Spirit of Omer are the steps that take us from one place to the other. Let's spend a couple of minutes analysing faith in the following way. The Talmud tells us a remarkable phrase. Halavai, wouldn't it be wonderful, Shitpalel Adam Kol Hayom Kulav. The person prayed all day long. 2 questions are asked by the great Sfardi Gaon, the Ben Yoyada on this Gemara. Question number 1, the Talmud says, wouldn't it be great if a person prayed all day long? Now we've got other activities that we have to do. Can't spend the whole day praying, there's too much else to do. You have to work, you have to learn, family time, etc. Secondly, what's unusual is the terminology that the Talmud uses over here for a person. It says, Halavai Shitpalel Adam Kol Hayom Kulav. Adam is a particular reference to mankind, one of many. Could have said Ish, could have said Yisrael, etc. So those are 2 questions. Question number 1, what does it mean? Setting it as an aspiration that we should pray the whole day long. Question number 2 is, what does it mean by using the word Adam? So he shares a beautiful thought. You daven, shul, home, wherever it is, and we close the Siddur. But actually, although we've stopped our overt prayer, although we've stopped our conscious prayer, we should leave the Siddur, but not leave prayer behind. There should be what he calls a constant tefillah shabbalei, a constant ongoing prayer within the heart. In other words, we close the Siddur, we come out of shul, and we have many, many aspirations for the day. And if in those aspirations we say, Yemiyat Hashem, please God, they should be successful. not in a cameo way, but in a real way that recognizes that God is the arbiter of our success. And we say, Baruch Hashem, thank God for life's blessings. Again, in a genuine way that recognizes that we don't take yesterday's gifts for granted tomorrow as expectations. In a real way, then we have a constant tefillah belief, an ongoing prayer in our hearts. And that would demonstrate that the tefillah that was overt is real, because the relationship remains covert, it remains latent, remains within ourselves. That's what the Talmud means. Wouldn't it be great if a person prayed all day long? If their relationship with the Almighty was such that there's constant, ongoing, silent prayer within themselves. Now, what about the word Adam? That was our second question, the choice of the word Adam. So the Ben Yehoyada, in a stroke of genius, notices as follows. The word Adam, like any Hebrew word, every letter could be spelled out as a word in its own right. So here we have the word Adam. Aleph, Dalet, Mem. If you spell it out, you spell out the covert letters, then Aleph, Lamed Pei, Dalet, Lamed Tov, and Mem. Actually, the blue letters are an anagram of the word Mitpalel, implying that even when the public man stops praying, the private person, that which is hidden from view, continues praying. That's the reason why the Talmud chose this word, because within its very letters it expresses this beautiful idea that the prayer should be ongoing even once the Siddur has closed. From this we see a very important definition of faith. Faith is not a concept, faith is a constant. Faith is not a ritual, faith is a relationship. It's not something we dip into here and there. As I heard it put once very beautifully, the challenge of real faith is not to ask ourselves how I fit God into my world, but how do I fit into His world. And that is really the opportunity to Pesach and Shavuot. As we move from our engagement with faith through the 7 weeks to our moments of commitment, that's the question to ask ourselves. Can we ask ourselves this question in a genuine way? How do I fit God? How do I fit into God's world? How do I move from the concept of Pesach to the constant of the Sfirat Omer and Shavuot? May we all take this opportunity to deepen our faith and to use this time to strengthen our commitment, and who knows what magic and nissim the power of faith can create.